Imagine two sisters, Maria and Sophia. They grew up together in the Dominican Republic, sharing secrets and dreams under the warm Caribbean sun. Sophia always looked up to Maria, who was strong and brave. Years later, Sophia moved to the United States, hoping for a better life. But life threw her a curveball. Her kidneys started failing, and she became very sick. That's when Maria stepped in, proving just how deep their bond was. Without hesitation, Maria offered to give Sophia one of her own kidneys. It was a big decision, a scary one, but Maria knew she had to do everything she could to save her sister's life. The sisters were ready to face this challenge together. The decision wasn't easy. Sophia felt terrible that her sister had to go through such a major surgery. "Are you sure, Maria? I don't want you to do this if you're not comfortable," Sophia said, her voice weak. Maria took Sophia's hand, her eyes filled with love. "Sophia, you're my sister. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. We'll get through this together." The doctors explained everything carefully. They talked about the risks and the recovery process. Maria listened intently, asking questions and making sure she understood everything. She was determined to be strong, not just for herself, but for Sophia too. They both knew this surgery was Sophia's best chance at a normal, healthy life. To make the kidney donation possible, Maria had to travel to the United States. She came with a special visa, a permission slip that allowed her to be in the country for a certain amount of time. This visa was important because it let her be with Sophia during the surgery and help her recover. But visas don't last forever. Maria's visa was only good for a limited period. Because the surgery and recovery would take longer than the visa allowed, Maria's lawyers helped her apply for something called humanitarian parole. This would let her stay in the U.S. legally while Sophia recovered, recognizing the extraordinary circumstances of the situation. It was all very complicated, with lots of paperwork and rules, but everyone hoped it would work out. Good news arrived. Maria's humanitarian parole was approved. This meant she could stay in the United States legally for a longer period, specifically to recover from the surgery and help Sophia. It was a huge relief for both sisters. They felt like they could finally focus on getting better without worrying about Maria having to leave the country. The paperwork was all in order, the doctors were ready, and Maria was healthy enough to donate. Everything seemed to be falling into place. They celebrated with a small, quiet dinner full of hope and gratitude. The surgery was scheduled, and they both felt a sense of nervous excitement. They were one step closer to Sophia getting her life back. The day of the surgery arrived, filled with a mix of hope and nerves. Maria and Sophia held hands as they were wheeled into separate operating rooms. The doctors and nurses worked carefully and skillfully. Hours later, the surgery was complete. It was a success. Maria's healthy kidney was now working inside Sophia's body, giving her a new chance at life. The first few days after the surgery were tough. Both sisters were in pain and needed a lot of rest. But slowly, they started to recover. Sophia's energy returned, and her doctors were amazed at how well her body was accepting the new kidney. Maria, though sore, was overjoyed to see her sister getting better. They were finally on the road to recovery, or so they thought. Just 1 week after the life-saving surgery, as Sophia was slowly regaining her strength and Maria was still recovering from the operation, there was a knock on the door. 2 men in plain clothes stood there, identifying themselves as ICE officers. They said they needed to speak with Maria. Confusion and fear washed over both sisters. Maria showed them her paperwork, the documents proving her humanitarian parole had been approved. But the officers said there was a problem. They claimed she had overstayed her original visa and that the parole extension wasn't valid. Despite Maria's pleas and Sophia's desperate explanations, they took Maria into custody. The door slammed shut, leaving Sophia alone and terrified, her fragile recovery threatened. ICE maintained that Maria had overstayed her initial visa, regardless of the humanitarian parole. They stated that the system flagged her for being in the country longer than her original visa allowed. The approval of the humanitarian parole, they argued, was either a mistake or didn't supersede the initial visa violation. This explanation made little sense to Sophia and Maria's lawyers. They had meticulously followed all the legal procedures. The humanitarian parole was specifically granted to allow Maria to stay for the surgery and recovery. It seemed illogical and cruel to detain her now, especially given the life-saving act she had just performed. They vowed to fight the detention and bring Maria home. Sophia's world crumbled when Maria was taken away. The stress and anxiety were overwhelming. Her body, still recovering from the transplant, started to reject the new kidney. Her blood pressure soared, and she felt weak and dizzy. Doctors worried that the rejection could become permanent. But more than the physical pain, Sophia felt a crushing guilt. She blamed herself for Maria's detention. "If I hadn't gotten sick, Maria wouldn't be in this mess," she sobbed. The thought of her sister suffering in a detention center after selflessly donating a kidney was unbearable. She knew she had to do something, anything, to bring Maria back. Her sister had saved her life. Now, she had to save Maria. Sophia's doctors were outraged by Maria's detention. They knew firsthand how vital Maria was to Sophia's recovery. "Maria's presence is crucial for Sophia's well-being," Dr. Ramirez explained. "The stress of this separation is directly impacting Sophia's health. It's unconscionable." The medical team saw the injustice of the situation. They understood the legal complexities, but they also recognized the human cost. They believed it was their moral duty to speak out. They began contacting lawyers, human rights organizations, and the media. They were determined to amplify Sophia and Maria's story and pressure ICE to release Maria immediately. They knew time was running out. The doctors' efforts sparked a powerful movement. Patients who had received transplants, along with their families, joined the cause. They understood the immense sacrifice Maria had made and the devastating impact of her detention. Human rights advocates, immigration lawyers, and community leaders also rallied to support Maria and Sophia. Together, they launched a media campaign to raise awareness about Maria's case. They created a website, shared their story on social media, and organized protests outside the IC detention center. Their message was clear: Maria, a selfless kidney donor, should be released immediately and allowed to continue helping her sister recover. They wouldn't rest until Maria was free. The media campaign was in full swing. The team organized press conferences where Sophia, looking frail but determined, shared her story. Doctors explained the medical necessity of Maria's presence. Lawyers detailed the legal inconsistencies in Maria's detention. On social media, the hashtag #FreeMaria became a rallying cry. People shared messages of support, photos of Maria and Sophia, and links to petitions demanding Maria's release. Advocates flooded the phone lines and email inboxes of elected officials, urging them to intervene. They hoped that by raising public awareness and putting pressure on those in power, they could finally bring Maria home to her sister. Maria's lawyers argued that ICE was ignoring the clear purpose of humanitarian parole. They emphasized that the parole was specifically granted to allow Maria to receive post-operative care and support Sophia's recovery. Detaining her now was not only illogical, but also inhumane. They also highlighted the ethical implications of the situation. How could the U.S. government detain someone who had selflessly donated a vital organ to save the life of an American citizen? It sent a terrible message about the value of human life and the treatment of immigrants. The lawyers filed legal motions, demanding Maria's immediate release based on these compelling arguments. "Maria is my hero," Sophia said, her voice trembling. "She gave me my life back. How can they do this to her?" Dr. Ramirez stated firmly, "Maria's detention is actively harming Sophia. We need her here to monitor her condition and provide support." "This is a clear case of injustice," declared Maria's lawyer. "We have presented irrefutable evidence that Maria is here legally under humanitarian parole." An activist passionately added, "We will not stand by and watch as a life-saving hero is treated like a criminal." #FreeMaria is more than a hashtag. It's a demand for justice. These voices, amplified across the media, painted a powerful picture of the human cost of Maria's detention. The longer Maria remained in detention, the graver Sophia's condition became. The stress was triggering a severe rejection of the transplanted kidney. Doctors feared that Sophia could lose the kidney altogether, requiring her to return to dialysis and face another transplant. Beyond the physical risks, Sophia's mental health was also suffering. She was constantly worried about Maria, unable to sleep or eat. The joy she had felt after the surgery was replaced by despair and anxiety. The very act that was supposed to give her a new life was now threatening to destroy it, all because her sister was unjustly detained. The situation was becoming critical. Maria's case shined a light on the challenges immigrants face when seeking medical care in the U.S. Strict ICE detention policies often prevent individuals from accessing necessary treatment or receiving support from loved ones. Many immigrants fear seeking medical help due to concerns about their legal status. This case also raised questions about the fairness and humanity of current immigration laws. Were these laws being applied in a way that disregarded individual circumstances and the value of human life? Maria's situation highlighted the need for a more compassionate and understanding approach to immigration, especially when medical needs are involved. Some argued that ICE was simply enforcing the law, regardless of the circumstances. They maintained that if Maria overstayed her visa, even unintentionally, she was subject to detention and potential deportation. They emphasized the importance of upholding immigration laws to maintain order and security. Others argued that while Maria's actions were commendable, it didn't excuse a potential violation of immigration law. They believed that allowing exceptions, even in sympathetic cases, could create a slippery slope and undermine the integrity of the system. They insisted that all individuals, regardless of their contributions, should be held accountable for following the law. The media campaign gained momentum. News outlets across the country picked up Maria and Sophia's story, highlighting the injustice of the situation. The legal team continued to file appeals and motions, challenging the validity of Maria's detention. Days turned into weeks, and the pressure on ICE intensified. Petitions circulated, gathering thousands of signatures. Protests continued outside the detention center, with people chanting slogans and holding signs demanding Maria's release. The legal battles were complex and slow-moving, but the media attention kept the pressure on, forcing officials to address the growing public outcry. Would it be enough to bring Maria home? The outcry over Maria's detention didn't go unnoticed by elected officials. Several members of Congress publicly expressed their concern, calling on ICE to review Maria's case and consider the humanitarian circumstances. A few senators even wrote letters to the Department of Homeland Security, urging them to grant Maria a stay of deportation. Local community leaders also voiced their support, organizing rallies and speaking out at town hall meetings. They emphasized the importance of compassion and fairness in immigration enforcement, arguing that Maria's case was a clear example of injustice. This growing political and community support added weight to the media campaign and put even more pressure on ICE. The emotional toll on Maria and Sophia was immense. Maria, trapped in the detention center, worried constantly about her sister's health. She felt helpless and guilty, knowing that her absence was making Sophia sicker. The sterile environment and uncertainty of her situation weighed heavily on her. Sophia, in turn, struggled with despair and loneliness. She missed Maria's presence terribly and feared that she would never see her sister again. The stress of the situation was exacerbating her medical condition, making it difficult for her to fight for her sister's release. Their bond, once a source of strength, was now a source of profound pain. Several outcomes remained possible. Maria could be released, allowing her to return to Sophia and help her recover. This was the hope that fueled the media campaign and the legal challenges. However, there was also the very real possibility of deportation, which would send Maria back to the Dominican Republic and devastate Sophia's health. If Maria wasn't released, the legal battles could continue for months or even years. This would mean more uncertainty and stress for both sisters, and further jeopardize Sophia's health. The future was uncertain, hanging in the balance as the legal and political processes played out. Asterisk note: this section needs to be updated with the most current information available. Asterisk: as of date, Maria remains in IC detention at location, if known. Her legal team is still actively pursuing all available avenues for her release. There have been specific details of any recent court hearings, rulings, or appeals. Sophia's health continues to be monitored closely by her medical team. She is receiving treatment to manage the kidney rejection, but her doctors emphasize that Maria's presence is essential for her long-term recovery. The media campaign is ongoing, with supporters continuing to raise awareness and demand action. The fight for Maria's freedom continues. Maria and Sophia's story forces us to consider difficult ethical questions. How do we balance the need to enforce immigration laws with the importance of human compassion? Should someone who has performed a selfless act, like donating an organ to save a life, be treated differently under the law? This case highlights the tension between upholding the rules and recognizing the unique circumstances of individuals. It asks us to consider whether strict adherence to the law always leads to just outcomes. Is it right to prioritize immigration enforcement over the well-being of two sisters whose lives are intertwined? These are questions that society must grapple with. This case has the potential to influence future immigration policies, particularly those related to medical care. If Maria is ultimately released, it could set a precedent for granting leniency to immigrants who provide essential medical assistance to U.S. citizens. It could also lead to a review of ICE detention policies to ensure that humanitarian considerations are taken into account. Conversely, if Maria is deported, it could have a chilling effect, discouraging immigrants from seeking medical care or donating organs, fearing that their legal status will be jeopardized. The outcome of this case could shape the future of immigration law and its impact on the lives of countless individuals. If you want to help Maria and Sophia, or support others facing similar situations, there are several ways to get involved. You can sign the petition at website address to demand Maria's release. You can also donate to Organization Name, which provides legal assistance to immigrants in need. To learn more about immigration policies and how they affect medical care, visit the website of Organization Name. You can also contact your elected officials and urge them to support compassionate immigration reform. Every action, no matter how small, can make a difference in the lives of immigrants and their families. Maria and Sophia's story is a powerful reminder of the human cost of immigration policies. It shows how these policies can tear families apart, even when love and compassion are at the center of their actions. It highlights the importance of remembering that behind every immigration statistic, there are real people with hopes, dreams, and fears. More than anything, Maria and Sophia's story calls for compassion. It asks us to consider how we can create a more just and humane immigration system that values human life and recognizes the contributions of immigrants to our society. Their story is a call to action, urging us to stand up for what is right. Imagine a photo of Maria and Sophia holding hands before the surgery, their faces filled with a mix of fear and hope. Now, picture Sophia alone, looking out the window, waiting for her sister to come home. As Sophia said, "We are sisters. We are family, and family should always be together." This image and Sophia's words encapsulate the struggle and the enduring hope that Maria will be released and reunited with her sister. Their story reminds us that even in the face of injustice, the power of love and family can never be broken.